Hi there, everyone. Welcome back to part 2 of our online sentence patterning chart tutorial. In this video, we're going to take our sentence patterning chart and our here, there chant, and we're going to use them with Google Slides and Jamboard to create a modified individual reading game for students. This activity will culminate with students creating their own here, there chant. Now, the only way that you're going to understand what I just said is if you have been trained in Project GLAD. Hi, my name is Jody Bader, and along with my partner, Dr. Sarah Martinez, we are OCDE Project GLAD consultants from Washington State who train and coach teachers how to bring Project GLAD strategies into their classroom for increased language development. These online tutorials are part of our Path to Proficiency online coaching program. And if you want to know more about us, just visit our website at nextstepsprojectglad.com. In our last video, we set up a whole class sentence patterning chart with a screen shared slide deck. If you haven't seen that video, I've linked it down below. Now, to prep for this individual reading game, you're now going to need to create a new slide deck with 4 slides in it. The first slide is the class here, there chant. And notice that this has been fully processed. This version includes all of the picture file cards, our sketches that the class has suggested, and I've added even more visuals and now color-coded the parts of speech as an additional scaffold for the students as they're manipulating the text boxes for their own SPC. Also in the slide deck are 2 completed copies of our SPC template. And finally, the template with the color-coded lines for a here, there chant. Okay, so when you get all those pulled together into one slide deck, it'll live in your Google Drive so that you can import it into your Google Classroom or into an interactive online tool. And today, we're going to be experimenting with Jamboard. So before we do that, let me give you an overview of what the students will do in this activity. So the idea here is that they are going to first review the here, there chant. I've actually also added an audio file to this slide to review the vocabulary and have the students chant it with me before moving on to the parts of speech work. So let me just play a few seconds of this so you can see what it sounds like. Here's our class Animals Here, Animals There chant. And notice the highlighted words that we've highlighted together as a class. Point to the word solitary. Now read that with me. Solitary. The picture is of a spotted owl alone on a branch. He is a solitary animal. Solitary means an animal alone, one animal by himself. Now let's chant this together. Ready? Animals here, animals there. So I just created this audio file by going up to Insert and scrolling down to Audio. One of the things that you'll need to keep in mind for this is that your audio file needs to already be created and live in your Google Drive. You also need to have the correct sharing permissions enabled. We want to make sure that it is enabled with anyone with the link is a viewer, and click Done. That way they will be able to access the link that's in your slide to that audio file and be able to hear it when they're playing this slideshow. So after they have reviewed the chant and the vocabulary, you'll move on to the next slide. The idea with this slide is that you will create a drag and drop activity using the words from the chant and the words the class brainstormed on the class SPC. This is where we are simulating the reading game that we would normally do on cut-up sentence strips in the classroom. On the second SPC slide, they will do something similar, but we're now taking a bit of the scaffolding away. And instead of you supplying them with pre-created text boxes to move, they will now create their own using their own words. Finally, on the here, there chant template, they will create text boxes and use the words from the previous slide to fill in the blanks and create their own chant. They could also use other chants and really any chant that you provide a template for them. So now we're ready to get into the nuts and bolts of how to create this activity. There's also a few little challenges that I'm going to walk you through with some tips along the way. So here we are in our drive. We're going to go up to the new button and we're going to create a new Jamboard. So I'm going to scroll down to more. That brings up the next list, and Google Jamboard is what we're creating. It's going to bring up a clear jam. Let's name it. This is our reading game. On the taskbar, I'm going to go to the photo icon and add an image. So each of my slides from my Google Slides presentation, I had to download as a PNG to create the picture that now we're importing into our jam. Let's just resize it here. Here's our first slide. Now the problem with this is that my audio didn't come through, so they're not going to be able to chant it with me the way that they would if they were watching this in a slideshow. Go up to the top and I have my next arrow. Here's my new slide. Insert my next picture, which is of the SPC game board, or the template, I guess. And we're going to continue doing that with the other two slides. Let me just get these in here. Okay, now taking a look at our here, there template. This is terrible quality. I can't even read the parts of speech words. So I have another one that I have downloaded, and let me show you the difference in the quality. It's also a PNG, but I created it a little bit differently. Now take a look. Oh, hold on. Now take a look at this one. So much better. You can actually read it. I am going to teach you how to do this. This is one of our little tricks that we're going to work through. And so stay tuned. In a little bit, we'll talk about the quality of your images and how to get them this crisp. Okay, but moving on from here, I need to get rid of this. And so if you click on it and delete it or clear frame, it deletes the image, but it's not deleting the slide. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to the slide sorter view, say that 10 times fast, and delete it from there. All right, get on slide number 2. So here is our first SPC. Now we're going to create our words that the kids are going to move around and create their sentences. I'm going to use sticky notes for this one. So here's the sticky note tab. I'll change the color. Let's start with our noun, which is orange for us. The noun is animals. And that creates a sticky note that's just going to go randomly on the board. I'll move it to my noun column. And continue by changing the color. Pink is the closest to red, so we'll put in some adjectives. Endangered. Continuing on with, let's do threatened. Extinct, our 3 main adjectives in this particular unit. And notice that Jamboard is just putting them up randomly on the template wherever. Now we'll change the color to green, which is our verb color, put a couple of verbs in there. All right, let me fast forward and get a few more on there. Okay, so now I'm at my adverbs, and if I can't remember what they all are, I can always go back to my chant. Okay, tenaciously, naturally, quietly. Okay, so let's add a couple more adverbs in there. Needlessly. And now Jamboard is stacking them. Okay, prepositional phrases. There's no purple. This is kind of a problem. I guess I'm just going to do the no color, but this is again, this is one of the downsides of using Jamboard, is just they're very limited in the editing colors that you have. So we'll put a couple prepositional phrases in there. In the jungle, on the savannah, and under the ocean. So the idea here is the students are going to be taking their Post-its and moving them into the right columns to create their complete sentences. So are they using the color coding and just getting the colors sticky in the right column? Absolutely. That is one of the things that they're doing. And if they need that scaffold, that's why it's there for them. It's perfectly okay on this particular one that they do that. My words are all in there. And now the kids are going to be able, when they're doing this on their version, they're now using the word choice to create complete sentences. So we'll do, let's see, endangered. Now let's do threatened animals persevere naturally under the ocean. I'll move a couple out of the way. Nocturnal animals stalk quietly in the jungle, and so forth. So you get the idea. So they're able to create their own sentences. So now on the second template, the idea here is to take away some of the scaffolding, and now the students are going to be supplying their own words. I'm going to put in some words that we've been already working with, and they can certainly look back at the chant or the class SPC, but also come up with their own new words. Notice that we're using the text box feature for this. Let me just get some words in here. Again, limited colors. We don't have a purple option for this. So that would be a drawback of using Jamboard. Now here's the other challenge with using Jamboard, and that is your background can move. There's no way in this program to upload your own image and have it locked in as the background. So you're going to have to decide whether your students are old enough or mature enough to be able to do this activity with a background that can move. It could be, for younger students, it could be kind of a hindrance. So even though there's nothing built into Jamboard to be able to lock your background image, there is a workaround that I'm going to show you. Okay, I don't want all my words on here, so I'll put this template back up here so we can, that I can show you this other idea. So this workaround has to do with the order of objects on this frame. So right now, this is the only object on the frame. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a clear object on top of it so that the background now will be locked and won't move. And that what the object that I'm going to put on top of it is another text box. I'm going to expand the size of this text box. I have to kind of play around with the vertical and the horizontal. But the idea here is that we are going to continue expanding this, and so it's completely off the frame. So the students don't even know that it's there, and they're not going to click on it and move it around. And to make it even safer, if I wanted to, some teachers actually even do the same thing twice. So we're going to put a second layer of invisible borders of text boxes. All right, so I would keep doing that until I had 2 layers. They can't move the background image, and then they can continue with their sticky notes or their text boxes. If you're moving forward with this in Jamboard, it's a perfectly acceptable activity that with drag and drop, and the sticky notes are pretty cool. But here is how we are going to assign that if you're moving forward with Jamboard. I'm in my Google Classroom. I'm creating a new assignment. We're going to call it, of course, the reading game. And for my instructions, I'm telling students what to do on each slide. On the first slide, they're going to chant the chant, paying attention to the vocabulary. On slide number 2, they're going to move the vocabulary sticky notes around to create complete sentences. Slide 3, they're going to create their own words. And in slide 4, they're going to use those new words in their to create a new chant. I've also created a step 5 for students. I want them to take their completed here, there, which is now in GLAD known as a flip chant, and go over to the program of Flip Grid with a link that I'm going to supply for them and record themselves doing their new chant. We will click Add, go to our drive, find the Jamboard that we just created. There it is, and I know that it's the Jamboard because of the logo rather than just my slide deck that I was starting out with. And then here's the magic. Go over to this drop down and click Make a Copy for Each Student. That means that when you assign it, each student is going to have their own activity to be able to do on their own. You can take a look at it and grade it, and so they're not all participating on the same board. So other than Jamboard, the other option that you have for this activity is to just stay in your regular slide deck. And that is where we're going to also talk about the quality of your images. So let's hop back to our slides.